You know, this place is an interesting environment we're in. People ask me how long I've been here, and I tell them 6 decades. Not quite, but it's a real honor to see you all here and know the history of the Ripon Society and what it means. And it's a true honor to be the Republican Study Committee chair because, quite frankly, it's the one place that the Speaker of the House, the traditional steering process, has no bearing. It's truly an election by your peers. And at the time when I was running for the chair, I had been the budget chair for the RSC for the previous 2 years, the current year that we are in, and then the year prior. And so I got to meet several folks and sort of lay out sort of my credentials of who I was and what I was. And then having run for Ways and Means, you get a chance to meet all the steering members and people on the committee. So we had a chance because of both the Ways and Means run and the steering committee run, or excuse me, the run for RSC, to meet a lot of folks, which I think has been very helpful in trying to compress time. You know, it's one thing to come here when you're 30, it's another thing to come here when you're almost 60. Time gets compressed if you're going to try to do things while you're here. And what I've always said, and my campaign slogan when I ran for office was Hern works. And I'll tell people this all the time, call it 35 years of being in McDonald's with 24 restaurants and 1,200 employees and having a bank and a manufacturing company and a publishing company and technology companies and doing real estate development all at the same time. You learn that, you know, sleep is a nuisance. And so I was programmed very early on that, you know, I could go to bed late and get up early, which was much to the chagrin of my parents and my grandparents. But, you know, it really paid off well in getting to here because, you know, people find that a lot of folks like to start their day at 9 and like to be done by 7 or 8. And we're just getting started on both ends of that. And so as we got into the RSC, knowing that you only have 2 years to be the RSC chair, it is the ultimate in term limits. It doesn't matter how much you want to do it again, you've got 2 years. And so you really hit the ground running. The election happens the Thursday usually after the November election on the Tuesday. And so at that point in time, you are starting to mold your direction after your election. And you get going, and you get going quickly. And we do on the RSC, I made it a point to do this on the RSC, and we've done this again, is to set the example for the conference. As a matter of fact, the RSC really is known for the conservative conscience of the conference. We're happy warriors. We're really about policy, not about politics. I've been challenged by many of my very, very hard conservative friends, and some that are not even in the Freedom Caucus because that's too liberal for them. To say that, you know, we need RSC to come out. And I say, you know, today, the RSC is as large as it's ever been in the history. It's 50-year history. There's 180 members in the RSC out of the 218 Republicans. And it's not just like the very hard conservative right or the very moderate folks that are not in there. There's kind of a splattering of folks throughout. But it really is a great place to have great policy conversation. And we really pride ourselves on getting people that are experts. Today we have Tom Holman, Mark Morgan. We've had, we had Mike Pompeo. We'll have him in a couple weeks. We've had Jack Keane talking about foreign policy. These are people who want to come speak to the members of Congress in an environment that's not a political, quagmire. So it's really a refreshing place. We do this every Wednesday, and it's really encouraging. We have a lot of outside groups talk to us about things that really matter, which all of that goes together to form the pinnacle of the RSC every single year, which is to put out a budget. And the budget always balances. It always is aggressive as a roadmap, not the roadmap, but a roadmap to a balanced budget, just to show people in Congress, when you say you're going to do a balanced budget and you say you're going to protect those programs for our seniors, like Medicare and Social Security, that we all have paid into our entire lives, and quote, we are entitled to get it back, the true definition of entitlement, then we show the pathway to get there. And there may be many others, but I haven't seen anyone do one since I've been in Congress. As a matter of fact, up until Jody did a markup in the House Budget Committee 2 weeks ago, that is the first budget that I have seen in the entire Congress in my time here. The only one I've seen other than that are the ones that I've produced. And so I can tell you, having worked on the budget as a budget chairman for 2 years, as a chairman last year and the chairman this year, so 4 years in a row, there's been nobody else that's currently in Congress that has done that. And I can tell you, we're in a world of hurt. And, you know, for us to continue to ignore it is a sin. It really is. I mean, it's doing such a disservice to our kids, our grandkids, to America as we know it. And it's sort of, I always use this place kind of like NASCAR. You know, the person that's out in the front never worries about, it's all the clean air and thinks nothing can happen until there's a pileup and something goes wrong. The wheels come off of their car, then everybody passes them. There are a lot of people out across the world that want to pass us today. And one of them is China. You know, people ask me all the time, so what do you think about China? I said, I don't hate China. I love America. I love to compete, and I'll compete with the best of people. But we're not doing ourselves a lot of justice when we're allowed to do things and without pushing back. And last week, 2 weeks ago, we released a China bill, an overarching, all-encompassing China bill that the speaker will use and things will come out of that. TikTok was one of that. We're not anti-TikTok. We're not. We're anti-using the data of our kids and our companies as a weapon, as a fuel for AI. And I'll be the first to say this. China knows that we do the same thing. That's why they're curtailing the use of our technology. This is an economic war across the front. And for our friends that are in Japan and others, they know this. They live it every single day. And for us to ignore it is doing a disservice to our true allies. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do and being right on the front lines of that. But when we lay out this budget identifies all of those areas. It identifies the areas of spending that need to be addressed. It identifies the security of this nation, because without the security of this nation, especially our southern border, we have no security, zero security. And we have to recognize that. While we're trying to save nations around the world, we're doing a disservice to this nation we currently live in. I've been to the border many times. I've been to the border where actually people cross the border, not someplace in a town where you're secure and nobody crosses the border, as our president and vice president have. I put forward a budget that balances, as I mentioned, so much so that changes the direction of this country, is that last year, after our budget came out in May, and a TV news reporter, NBC reporter, I believe, at the White House asked Karine Jean-Pierre if she had, quote, seen the Republican budget, which, by the way, was the only budget, which was the RSC budget. And she went through a little diatribe, but the last two sentences she had is what I've used for my campaign work back home, and I've not got an opponent, so it must be working. And she said, it is so aggressive that it destroys all the great work that Joe Biden's done the last 2.5 years. So there is no greater badge of honor to know that we've done the right thing. And then to top it off and sort of put the icing on the cake, Joe Biden, President Biden, took our budget, and he was in Maryland at a big union rally, and he starts waving it around, saying, look at what Republicans in Congress are trying to do to our nation, like balance our budget, like secure our border, make sure we have a strong military, make sure we have free and fair trade. All of these things that really matter. Keeping our tax code constant so it's predictable for our businesses across America, keeping us competitive in the tax code around the world with Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. And no, Ralph, I didn't think that was my wife's pillar and my pillar. It's a country joke. So anyway.
Bada bing.
Yeah. So when he said I brought it up here, I didn't know if he was trying to get at me being from Oklahoma, Arkansas. But this budget, like I said, balances in 7, gives some flexibility in there to get the balance in 10. But you think about this, we say that we throw things around here with no meaning whatsoever. Many of you are in business or you represent businesses. If you went and told the CEO of your company, or if you are the CEO, that, oh, we're going to get this company under control and it's going to take 7 or 10 years to do it, you wouldn't even be considered as the CEO. People hire you to get their business balanced this year, to come in and make a change so you're solvent. Here we're talking about these austerity measures, and I put those in quote because they're basically just meaning living responsible, for 7 years to get to 0 deficits. Means we're not paying back any debt. We're trying to shrink the deficit so that the spending matches the revenues. Novel concept. Something that every single American has to do every single day. And so that's what we do in this budget. We show where those come to zero and then start paying down the debt. In my lifetime, and in most of your lifetime, even Miranda, 1990, we have seen budgets in the black. And it took a bipartisan approach to get there. It took a recognition that we've been high on alcohol, and we all got to come together to say that alcohol is spending. We've got to come together to fix it. That was in '96, and there's a lot of novel concepts that came out, like we've got to stop paying so many people to stay home instead of working. We've got to make sure that we get our spending under control. And for 97, 98, 99, and 2000, we ran budgets in the black. And only until the 2001 tech bubble did that change in a thing called 9/11. We can do this. We can do this. But we cannot be doing this in an environment where it is challenged that we can't curtail our spending. And Democrats are really bad at spending, taxing and spend. If you don't believe it, look at Joe Biden's budget. Raise taxes, spend more. Never balances, ever. Never balances. But quite frankly, friends, Republicans only win because they're not as bad as Democrats. And I have said this time and time again. We have got to be better Republicans at honoring what our creed was 170 years ago in Wisconsin, or 4 months later in Michigan, that says that we're going to be fiscally responsible and that we're going to care about life. Think about some of these things. Care about life. I read yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was, it's believed that there were more abortions last year than in the history of this country. Last year, after the Supreme Court ruling. Think about that. Are we really winning on Republican issues? Securing our border? Are we limiting government from being involved in our lives? Government has grown more in the last 10 years than it's ever grown. If you look at the job growth, 80% of the job growth in America is from the government. It's not private sector. We're not winning these battles. We've got to start focusing on winning some battles. Quit trying to win the war, win some battles, win enough of those so that we can start bending this curve. It's a big behemoth. We got to work together. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate about getting results. It's something that I haven't seen a lot since I've been here. I've seen a lot of good policy that has started showing great results, and then those got unraveled. Some of the border executive orders that President Trump did, they changed the direction of the border. They weren't pieces of legislation. President Trump was right to be frustrated with Congress. President Biden's right to be frustrated with Congress. It is our responsibility to change the law so that they operate under the law. It's one of our enumerated powers. We need to do a better job. House passed H.R. 2 last year. And some say, well, that's just ridiculous. It was passed with Republican votes. Republicans passed it. It wasn't an anomaly. Republicans passed it with Speaker McCarthy. It secured our southern border. Whether we like all the details or not, it was a path forward. So, again, I could talk about these things all day long. I'd rather take your questions for our remaining time. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.